Hello everyone, today I'm doing a tutorial on how to make a thumbnail like this one. This one is going to be a bit of a longer video because there's just a lot more steps than the last one. So if you want to skip the tutorial, for a small fee you can buy the Photoshop document in the description. And that'll have everything in it, including the thumbnail one and the one we end up making in this tutorial. So just like the last tutorial, in your document, go to Film and Video and HDTV 1080p, and it might be showing these lines. If it does, hold Control or Command H and that'll get rid of them. So the first thing we want to do is get this background. So to get that, we need to press this half circle down here and then select gradient. And once we select that, you can click here, set this to a dark gray and this to a slightly lighter gray. And if this is transparent, press this top one here and then change the opacity to 100%. Then press OK. And then to get rid of some of these lines, press dither and that just smooths it out a little bit more. The next thing we're going to do is make the graphs. So this is just like the last tutorial, and we need to get the pen tool, zoom out. To zoom out, hold Alt and then use the scroll wheel. And then to scroll across, hold Control and use the scroll wheel. Select the pen tool by pressing P, and then at the top, this should be on path, change it to shape. And once you set that to shape, you can draw a downwards graph like this. Go around and close in the shape. Now once you've done that, change the fill up here to something red. Then duplicate the layer by pressing Control or Command J. And then on this new layer, remove the fill by pressing the red line, and then add a stroke and set it to a slightly darker red. Set the stroke to around 30 pixels. Once that's done, press here and change the corners to round and the caps to round so it rounds off the stroke. Once that's done, to get rid of this line, hold Control and just click off while on the pen tool. The next thing we're going to do is double click the layer with the stroke, add a drop shadow, set it to 90 degrees because that's where the light's coming from on the background, and then press OK. If you want to adjust these at all, hold Shift to select both the shape layers and press Link Layers. This means if I click on this bottom shape layer, hold Control and press T to rotate it, it'll rotate both of the layers. I'm just going to adjust this graph a little bit. Once that's done, we want to do the same thing in green on the other side and make the graph go up. If you want to adjust the graph at all, press the stroke layer, press the letter A, and then hold Control and then click the line. Once that's done, on any of these points you can just click them and drag them to move them. This doesn't move both layers at once, so I recommend doing the stroke layer first and then adjusting the fill layer next. I'm also going to do the same on the red side. The next thing we need to do is add a gradient and glow on the graphs. So to add the gradient above the red or the green fill layer, to add the gradient, we'll do it first on the red fill layer. Grab the gradient tool and just on the angle of the layer, go like that, from dark to light. And then hold Alt or Option and then click in between the two layers and set the blending mode here to any of these 5. So darken, multiply, color burn, linear burn, or darken color. I'm going to pick linear burn, and that's the gradient done for the red. We do a very similar thing on the green fill, except we drag the gradient in the opposite direction, so it's going from dark to light. You can set it to any of these 4, so light and color, green, color dodge, or linear dodge. I'm going to pick linear dodge and then adjust the gradient here with this slider. Once that's all done, the next thing we need to do is add the glow. So to add the glow on the layers, we need to shift click all the green ones and hold Control or Command G to group it, and then do the same for the red, and I'm just going to name these. Once that's done, above the green graph you can add a solid color and set it to a bright green, and then on the mask, hold Control and invert it. Then we can press Control J to duplicate this and just drag it on top of the red layer and set the color to a red. On both of these glow layers, change the blending mode to linear dodge add, because that gets the best result for glow. Then we can press B to get on the brush tool, and then make sure you're clicked on the mask, set the color to white, and then you can draw over to add a glow. If yours looks like this and it's way too bright, at the top, this flow percentage, drag it down to 1%, and then on the side menu here in the brush settings, change the spacing to around 15 to 20%. If you don't see the brush menu, go to Window, and then go down and find brush settings. Then just click that. What you want to do to get a good glow is make the brush smaller by pressing the square brackets, and then just do different layers. So you can do one big layer, a slightly smaller layer, and this just makes the center of the line the brightest part. So you can see that's a pretty big difference, and just do the same on the red. This is looking pretty good, and to make sure you don't lose your progress, make sure to save. After that's done, the next thing we need to do is add the subject in the middle and split the frame in half. So to split the frame in half perfectly, hold Ctrl and press H to get the guides back, and Ctrl R to get the ruler up. Then we can drag these guides out of the way. Then from the ruler you want to drag a guide to here, click it, right click, edit selected guides, and set it to 960. Then you want to do the same thing and set a guide to 480 and set another guide to 1440. This just splits it into 3 sections, so you can have the text on this side centered, the text on this side centered, the line centered, and your subject centered. For the subject, I'm just going to get a stock image off of Unsplash, and I'm going to drag that into Photoshop. Once you get your image here, you can press the check at the top there, go to the Magic Wand tool, which might also be the Object Selection tool or the Quick Selection tool, and then press Select Subject. After it's selected the subject, come down here and press the Layer Mask button, which just masks him out. Once you've done that, click the subject, hold Ctrl T so you get the transform controls, and then try and center the subject on the middle line. Once you've done that, add another solid color layer, set it to a white or an off-white, invert the mask, and then select your brush, put it on white, go up here, turn the hardness to 100%, and the size to about 15. After you've done that, turn your flow back up to 100%, and your spacing back down to 1%, and then hold Shift, and then click on the middle line, and just draw up. That draws the line perfectly in the center, and because we made a solid color layer, we can just change the color of that line to anything we want. If you have 2 separate images, one with someone frowning and the other one with the same person smiling, that would be best, but because I don't, I'm just going to have to duplicate the layer, and then with the rectangular marquee tool, select one half of it, and then just draw with black on the mask. Once I've done that, I'm going to press Ctrl or Command H to remove the guides for now, because we don't need them. On this left side, to make it look dirty like this, go into Texture Labs, which I'll link in the description, and find a grunge that looks good. So I'm going to use this one, Grunge 327, and I'm just going to download that. Once that's done, drag it into Photoshop, set the blending mode to color burn, and then hold Alt or Option and click in between the texture and the side you want the grunge on. And then we can lower the opacity here to make it not as obvious. Once that's done, to make him look like he's frowning, I'm going to go here and use the lasso tool up there, and then just use the generator fill to make him frown. So it's given me 3 pretty good results here, so I'm just going to pick the best one. But because that's made a new layer, I have to Ctrl G to group these together, and then apply the grunge to that group. Or if you want to spend some more time removing stuff, you can use the clone stamp tool like I did on this one, but you can kind of tell that you used it there, because you'll have very repetitive things like that, or that. So it's not perfect, it's very hard to do it perfectly. The best thing to do is just take the photo again if you can, to fit whatever thumbnail you want. So the next thing we're going to do is add the glow around the person. So this is very similar. It's actually the exact same as the glow on the graph. So I'm just going to group the left side here. I'm going to duplicate the solid color layer from the bottom one so it has the same color, and just delete the mask and then add another mask. Invert it and then put my brush back on a low flow of 1% and the spacing of around 15 to 20%, and then put the hardness down to 0. Once that's done, I'm just going to go around the side here and just try and think where the light would be hitting off. So I'll do a time lapse here. If your lines aren't super straight, try turning the smoothing percentage up to around 10 to 20%. If you have a drawing tablet, you can also use that, I think. I'm not sure how those work with Photoshop, but I'm pretty sure you can use them. Otherwise, just use keyboard or mouse, or trackpad if you're on a laptop. If you're doing highlights on the face, I recommend turning the flow up to around 3% instead of 1%. That looks pretty good, so you can do a before and after there. And I'm just going to do the same on the other side with the red. Once that's all done, the next thing we need to do is add the text. Press Ctrl or Command H to get the guides back on, and then you can press T to add text. So on this side, I'm going to write to this, but you can make this whatever you want. And this font is Montserrat, so I'll link that in the description, and just set this to a green. So I'm going to set it to like a pastel green like that. And then on the other side, I'm going to do from this, and then set that to more of the red. Once that's done, you can double click the layer, add a drop shadow, and then add an inner shadow, and then just do the same on the red. And I'm going to bring a guide down to around 150, and then center the text on there. I'm also going to make the text a bit bigger. After that, your thumbnail is pretty much finished. If you want to add some more stuff to the greens, such as a money overlay like this one, you can search it on Google and make sure it's one where it looks white there, but when you click on it, it turns into the hexagonal thing. That means it's clear. Right click it, press copy image address, then in Photoshop press file, place embedded, then press on your computer, and in the file name, press Ctrl V to paste the image address. And that'll make sure it's pasted with the background clear, otherwise it just turns black. Then you can scale that up or scale it down to fit, just make sure it fits the graph. And then just put that above the green graph, press Alt or Option and click in between them so it goes onto the graph. I'm going to put it above the fill, Alt or Option, and then change it to something like multiply or linear burn seem to work the best, or darken, just any of those three. So I'm gonna press darken. I'm gonna pick darken and then lower the opacity a little bit. And if you want, you can duplicate it to make it more dense and just move it a little bit. And you could also do something similar to that on the red side. So that's pretty much it for this tutorial. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more tutorials, comment what you want to see a tutorial on. I'll try and make one for every comment. Like and subscribe if you want to see tutorials in the future. Goodbye.